Okay, so first of all, thank you very much for both of you, Sarthak and Sanchi, for coming to our meeting. It's a real, we are very, very glad that you guys are here tonight. So I will just introduce you and the Zoom in Portuguese, and then you keep in English, okay? Então, pessoal, boa noite a todos. Vamos dar início ao nosso penúltimo Juno Club do ano. Hoje a gente vai ter uma apresentação muito especial, muito bacana, com o Dr. Sarthak Sawarkar. That's correct? How can I say your last name, Sarthak?
It's Sawarkar. It just said exactly the
Sawarkar.
way it's written. Yeah.
Ok. So, yeah, Sarthak, ele é CEO e co-founder do Summer Fertility, mas ele vai falar de várias outras tecnologias de inovação. Como debatedor, a gente tem o Santiago Munné, que ele é diretor científico da Progênesis, ele é CEO do Futuro e dispensa apresentações, todo mundo conhece o Santi. Eu vou estar aqui de moderadora. Para quem não me conhece, eu sou Daniela Braga. Então, vamos dar início. So, Sarthak, thank you very much for your presentation. If you wanted to share your lecture, please.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you so much for having me. She already gave my introduction, and I'm sure it was very kind. But just to give you a little bit of a background about what I did and how I came into the field of fertility, I was working with Santiago in reprogenetics a while ago at this point in time. And my background in the field of fertility is that of a geneticist. I never had any training per se, or any even in any I didn't even want to get into the care delivery portion of IVF. But as life would have it, right, it has its own ways of bringing you to certain things, to do certain things. And for me, it was around the COVID time when me and my wife, we wanted to have a child. And then we recognized that IVF centers across New Jersey and New York and Connecticut, all of them shut down. And care was absolutely hard to come by. Wait lists went through the roof. And we started, thinking, why is IVF the way it is, right? Like how, and how we came about to be delivering care in the format that we do today, and what would essentially be the next step. What would be the future or evolution of an IVF clinic. And that is essentially what I want to talk to you folks today about. This is going to take us through. Okay, there you go. So the evolution of what we want to do is create take the center of today and look at what it would be to become the most advanced fertility clinic available. If there is one thing that I want everybody to take away today, is that there are a lot of interesting innovations, and the topic of the conversation today itself was very wide. But what I'm going to do is keep it limited to what I imagine literally the next step of an IVF clinic to be. Right. I'm not presenting, there's a lot of cool technologies around stem cells, and, everybody's reading about skin cells being converted into eggs, and beyond amazing, scientists doing a lot of really, really cool things. But I'm not going to present any of that, right? I'm going to literally talk about what I think the IVF clinic will look like over the next 10 years. And that is what I will focus on today. So the way that I imagine IVF to evolve over the next 3 to 5 years, and then continue to sort of develop over the next decade, is essentially, this, right? You have self-monitored care that begins and ends at home. You have the lab, which is roboticized. You have Santi on the call today. He works at Overture, which is already making amazing strides in that direction. There's there's two approaches there that I'm going to talk about. Um, then there's the orchestration itself, patient management, end-to-end patient management being done through some version of artificial intelligence. That is something that we've had to imagine, and I'll tell you why in a second. But then also utilize AI for standardization of protocols and sort of achieve some version of global consistency in terms of outcomes of IVF. And then if essentially utilize technology to continuously self-improve and have a global architecture that is set up that is able to gather data in a non-fragmented way that you are able to utilize to improve the cycle and its outcomes. And then the last part of it, I think, is where I have a very strong conviction, in that is to be able to serve patients beyond what we generally see in the clinic today, which is people that are going to do elective IVF for a myriad of reasons. But the one that I'm going to focus on today is the new breed of patients that have started entering Sama's doors already, our virtual doors, obviously, but our doors that are candidates for whole genome sequencing of embryos. And they are electively doing multiple cycles to essentially choose for the best quality, best version of themselves as embryos goes. Please do feel free to stop me along the way, or if there's a way of, if we want to punt questions to the end, we can definitely do that. Um, why do we need to reimagine, right? Like that's the first question. Like why if something isn't broken, you don't usually fix it. Um, but I would argue that that's not the case, at least not in the US. I tried to look for data around this in Brazil, but I couldn't find anything. And please feel free to correct me if the situation is different. But in the US, the problem of not having enough clinics is becoming widely apparent. So we have about 425 odd clinics as of date. A lot of consolidation, a lot of aging out of REIs is being observed, and the number of places, physical centers where care is available for people has been actually, either has stayed stable or even has been declining in certain geos, especially rural geos where it becomes extraordinarily um, inefficient to start a new clinic or to keep running an IVF clinic in its current setup. The US has about 50 spots for fellows every year. 50 is what we graduated last year. And, 1,100 double board certified specialists that operate. In the US, you need double board certification beyond OBGYN. You also need to be an REI. To claim the title of a fertility doctor. If we compare that to the number of OBGYNs in the US, that's about 42,000 as of last count. So we are already recognizing that we have about 7 million people that are infertile as of last count of last year, and we have only about 1,100 doctors that are able to serve them. Um, all of this, just results in a lot of wait time, all of that. And a point I want to make here, and look, you can also see that from the art cycles, by the way, that we've done more year on year. And I purposely gave this graph because I'll make a note of this, right? The one on the bottom is important. I took the data from the SART website. I created this myself. But we've actually plateaued over the last 3 years around the 420,000 odd on an average every year. And we aren't doing any more cycles, at least in the US. The problem, and this is a much bigger problem than what we give credit for, right? Over time, I have been told by many of folks that this is a women's health problem. This is a femtech problem, and I find it extraordinarily disturbing when that happens. I think this is a humanity problem. I think we are solving for a completely global problem here. And that's reflective across the world. I mean, I put Brazil in there because that data was almost immediately available. Within 5 decades, we've seen fertility plummet in a country where population was supposed to be a problem, right? I come from India. I was born and raised in India, and India is also supposed to have a population problem. We are the most populous country in the entire world today, but our replacement rate in India is at 1.91 and showing the same trajectory that almost every country other than the continent of Africa is exhibiting at this point in time. The US, in fact, as of last count, is already below replacement rate. The official statistic is at 1.91, but from a very recent graph that I saw from Lyman Stone yesterday, I saw that only South Dakota is at about 2.0. Every other state is teetering at around 1.6. So we are already way below the 1.91 official statistic within the US too. Um, 1 in 6 people will need fertility care in the US at any given time. But given the disparity of centers and the doctors available, there's only about 1 in 25 that will be able to access it. So, first I say that we have to reimagine it. And the reasons that I'm given for that is the fact that, well, the current setup is just not enough, right? We just aren't able to reach the number of people that we should be reaching. And then the second part of it is that this number is going to keep going. So the delta of the number of people that are able to access care is going to keep going high. So then that brings us to the third point, right? So if we got really, really good at it, we might be able to serve more people in the same existing setup. But we somehow haven't actually been able to do that either. So our success rates now, and again, like these are widely varied across the planet. For an example, in India, you see about a 30% fetal heartbeat rate for the age group of 35 years old. That's some data that I could find out, which in the US is now somewhere around the 50% mark. Um, but everywhere, even in the US, what you're seeing is a plateaued improvement towards IVF success. We aren't seeing like, okay, because we started using AI for embryos, we suddenly saw like a 30% bump. The closest to the bump that we actually achieved was, I think, the move towards using some version of genetic technologies, and it's quite evident in the way that the growth curve goes. I know that it's a contentious topic about the utility of it, but the outcomes of implantation success actually merit the fact that over time, PGT actually has been the only thing that has changed success outcomes. Obviously, lab technologies and controlled things have contributed, but the contribution has been very, very steady. It hasn't been something which you could actually see in genomic sequencing or in AI adaptation, right? In genomic sequencing, it's followed Moore's law. And it's the same as for example, in AI adaptations, the growth of these has just been, exponential, or the drop in cost has been, really, really steep. And I make a point for that. And the point for that is that we've treated IVF for the longest time as an art, which, I'm not disagreeing. There is no aspect of art associated with it. But in my opinion, the way to actually gain or make significant gains is that identifying the problem that this is a system bottleneck. It's not a scientific bottleneck. What I mean by that is if you see on the right, we have a very human dependent way with which we deliver care today. Customized dosing, manual grading, and then just in general, a completely fragmented architecture of how we deal with data. What I mean by that is a person's actual history isn't necessarily coming into a global picture or a global architecture of suggesting what success outcomes would look for them in a very personalized way. We just aren't able to do that because of the limitations of the kind of systems that we end up using in the clinic today. The evolution of the next generation of clinics from our perspective and what we are doing at Sama Fertility is we are using a very unified approach towards the architecture of data itself, and then we are heavily leaning on automations throughout clinical management. We already have AI dosing that we use on a regular basis. We are looking at partnering with automated labs, and I'll talk about them towards the end of the conversation. But more importantly, I'm taking the approach of, good driving versus bad driving. What I mean by that is there are two ways that the Tesla self drives. One of the way is you literally program, imagine you're driving around on a road, right? You literally program it as if it is on a graph of driving on X divided by 2. So it sticks in the center of the lane and the car drives itself. The problem with thinking about anything like that, or thinking about a problem like that, is that in the real world, there are variables. There's potholes, there's whatever, right? There's a cat that runs out. So the machine, in fact, if you have enough of a unified data architecture, you can train the machine on what good outcomes and bad outcomes look like. And you are able to, in fact, assign a lot of variability, and the machine's able to take care of it. So this is what the next generation of IVF clinics would do, which is utilize advancements in algorithms and essentially utilize a much more standardized data structure. But the problem wasn't just in AI automations or anything like that, right? There was also a big access issue. For example, in the US, I told you there were 425 clinics. We are a pretty large country here. And if you look at it, there are vast portions of the country that are completely underserved. So if we truly want to make gains in terms of access, we have to make sure that we are able to deliver care to people wherever they are. And this is where I'd like to present what we do at Sama, which is called as anywhere monitoring. So anywhere monitoring literally uses a handheld ultrasound that you're seeing on the left. It's a transvaginal two-dimensional
Sometimes we
ultrasound.
don't see the slides. We don't see the slides.
Oh, where did you stop?
In the one with the ultrasound with the follicles, I was seeing it.
Yeah, you're seeing it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
That's where I am. Yeah, yeah.
I'm seeing.
Okay. Oh, sorry, Santi.
No,
I don't know.
very
What do I do?
Okay.
Everybody else is seeing it?
I
Yes.
am. Are you, Oscar? Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, yeah, going back to the at-home ultrasounds, how they work is that the device that you see on the left is literally delivered to the patient. The patient self-administers the ultrasound under the audio guidance of a trained ultrasound specialist from Sama. This ultrasound specialist has generally trained with us for about 4 to 6 months. It takes as long to unlearn a lot of the things that most ultrasound technicians learn in school. And then the machine, in fact, in this case, is a pre-programmed phone that goes along with the ultrasound device. When I say machine, generally in my conversation, I'm thinking about some version of a tool, an AI tool or a machine tool that we use for processing images, doing post-processing, etc. What you're seeing on the left, by the way, are real images. They're not like some random images that I pulled off of the internet. Just wanted to give you folks a little bit of a flavor of what the imaging quality looks like. These are done by the patient. We have now completed more than 1,000 scans. We have a 100% completion rate, which means that every time we start a scan, we end up coming out of it with some version of an image that is acceptable by the physician. So it could be in active so it could be while the patient is performing them, or our machine could later on perform a post-processing on it and make sure that the physician is happy with it. We have a 95 net promoter score. What that means is that it's extraordinarily a positive experience for people. And the average time that it takes for a patient to complete an appointment, we set up 15-minute slots, but the average time is about 7 minutes. And it takes less than 3 minutes for the last scan because the patient's already so used to it, and the follicles are larger by the end of the cycle. We do not do any post-pregnancy scans, right? So you have to recognize that this is like a very highly specific thing for only egg retrieval cycles and frozen embryo transfer cycles. So we don't do anything other than that. There are some limitations around this particular data set, which is that we have never been able to do the same patient that is done at home and then also goes into the office. I just haven't been able to. We haven't been able to do that. That is something that we intend on doing in the next year. We are presenting this work at ASRM in a few weeks now. We were granted an oral for this, but I think it's a fantastic way to make sure that patients are able to access it. On a side note, one of the things we recognized, the first thing we thought was, oh, only rural patients would want it, and it's just not been the case. We see about a 50% utilization of this, where we see about 50% people that are actually rural have a real access issue, which means that they're driving for more than 1.5 hours to their IVF center. That is actually most people in the US today. So, we have a large market that we are able to address there. But 50% of our market has come from major cities with busy individuals who don't want to go into the clinic every day, every alternate day. So that was the at-home aspect of it, right? So one thing that we recognized was IVF is complicated as is, and it becomes infinitely more complicated if every patient is distributed. So right from the get-go, I was talking to you folks about just having a better model for data infrastructure. And that also comes from the way the clinic operates. It's not just about a software tool, but it's also about the intention of how you run a clinic. This is a nuanced topic. And again, like we have two abstracts that were accepted at ASRM to make the point here. But most clinics are procedural. What that means is that any kind of action or data that is generated in a clinic emanates from an individual. It could be a nurse, it could be a doctor. On the top right, I show you a note which you probably have seen at some point in time. I'm not sure how you run the clinic, but most of the clinics we worked with run something like that. That is what we call a procedural approach, right? So you set up a new procedure that somebody has to follow based on data that has been created. The issue with that is that no machine can do anything with fragmented data like that, right? So you cannot set it up. There isn't any learning that's happening. For example, the results that are coming in from this particular action, they are going into some version of a chart or whatever, but there isn't anything that you can do on a global scale. So how do you think about it, right? Like how do you actually improve? How do you utilize this? Well, we in fact gave a playbook. We wrote a playbook over years of time. We've written a playbook that is the map for what any IVF treatment can look like from one end to another, right? So it doesn't matter if there are exceptions or outliers. The machine is already aware of what needs to happen to the patient at that particular junction. So the concept is called a finite state machine, and the way that this works is that no matter where the patient is, the machine's already aware of what needs to happen to the patient. And then all of that data is quite literally, you're able to navigate it using other smarter models on top of it that then can learn from it, learn what is good driving, what is bad driving from it. And it refines consistently and improves the outcomes in the long term. So we are in fact presenting this again. We have two of these things that we are presenting around. One is just the parallel state machine, and the other part is, in fact, we lowered the number of monitoring sessions that we did, and we compared around what the machine was saying and what the doctor was saying, and we found that, in fact, they were very, they were 100% congruent on the intention, and the outcomes, never changed. So both of these, if any of you are at ASRM, I thought that the two-track monitoring strategy also deserved an oral, but they've given us a poster for that. And the finite state machine, the whole infrastructure for running a distributed clinic in itself has received a oral. So please come see us for that. So now we've spoken about, how we can improve access with the at home, then how you can run a clinic with using the smarter modern tools, making sure that you're able to utilize AI in a very real setting. You essentially come. Sorry, I think that was supposed to be earlier, but this is what the process looks like. This slide was supposed to be right next to the slide of at-home stuff. So, generally you end up going into the clinic repeatedly with SAMA and self-service at-home IVF. You essentially come into the clinic twice, once for your egg retrieval, once for embryo transfer. I've used a little bit of, like there's one more visit technically that we at SAMA require you to do, which is for qualification for the at-home. We need you to have a clinical ultrasound performed to make sure that we feel comfortable and confident in dealing with you as a patient. Generally, about 90% of all candidates that come through the door are approved for the at-home monitoring. Sorry, so let me quickly repeat. So we worked on access with at home, then we worked on efficiencies with the AI stuff, and then I think comes the aspect of IVF, factory grade IVF, as I like to call it. Now, this isn't something that we work with directly, but we partner with two amazing companies that I'm sure you folks have looked at. So Conceivable Life Sciences on the left is they're totally different in approaches. One is if you want to totally upheave the existing infrastructure within the clinic, and I'm a very close friend of Alan and the late Joshua Abrams, and Alejandro Badiola was also a lab mate of mine. So I have what we recognize here is a total upheaval of your infrastructure. So if you're setting up a new center right from the ground up, you can have a completely end-to-end automated experience with SAMA and Conceivable Life. A second alternative to that is taking a slightly different approach through Overture, where they have been targeting more unique processes in the lab to automate. And I think that is both of them are really strong approaches. And I think Santi's here. He's a bigger expert in this. The reason you would do this is to just eliminate any kind of variability. So we eliminated variability from standardization with AI for patient management, and you let machines handle that. And then you sort of also look at the lab from the same perspective, and you try to eliminate variability. And this isn't about, the whole idea here is to get to the same gains that we saw in genomics or AI adaptation, right? We have, with very good veracity, we have seen that the need for IVF in the US is close to 1.5 million cycles. So to get there, we're going to have to think about it from the fact that we need to increase the size of the pie rather than like rather than like fight for every individual patient and kind of see the plateauing that we've seen in the field. So the gains that you would have by, you know, by addressing the access part of it, by doing the at home, then making sure that the patient management is top class and easy, convenient, operationally inexpensive. You then use, you know, factory grade IVF to maintain or improve outcomes. What you will see is an overarching you know, gain in the utilization, because you're able to reduce costs, improve outcomes, all of that. So that kind of brings me towards the you know, last part of what I was saying, right? Like, you've done all of this, but if you were planning on just doing, you know, what is the constitution of the people that are beyond the infertility folks that are already coming into the clinic? So obviously, you know, the limiting of access um, limiting of access comes from cost, it comes from geography, it comes from the inconvenience of getting care. Um, that is going to be, you know, to go from 400,000 to 1.5 million, that's going to be a significant portion of the group. Let's assume that it's double, you know, 2.5 times is what we end up seeing. Like, okay, all infertile people are served. But then there is, I think, a significant portion of an extra layer of folks that will be seeking elective fertility care. So the next decade, I think that is going to go, you know, further and further up, right? If your neighbor has selected for the best version of what their kid could be, would you not want to also consider that? I think that's, you know, that goes down to the very basics of human nature. Um, I, for one, happen to believe that this is how we are going to start seeing a completely different set of intended parents walk through our doors. At Sama, we've already done about 6 cases at this point in time where patients are doing multiple, like they have goals for 40, 50 embryos to be created to be able to select the best version of themselves. So this also goes down to, you know, the fact that if you're going to have fewer babies, wouldn't you want to take a more data-driven approach towards having that one baby that you wanted to have? So, you know, we work with a company called Heresight. They've recently been all over in the news, you know, brilliant folks. And again, like, what you are looking at here is an evolution from just treating infertility towards choosing for traits that are beyond. So you know, they, for one, are somebody that offer um, within a standard deviation, they can actually offer you to choose for a higher IQ of embryos. They have physical traits, you know, eye color, height, BMI, obesity, all of those which are desirable for choosing the best version of themselves. That is what I believe is going to happen. So, you know, just rounding it up, I think I don't know how we're doing on time right now, but I know we started a little late. I want to keep some time for questions. But rounding it up, I think this is what I imagine the right next step of our you know, IVF to be.
Thank you very much, Sarthak, for the marvelous presentation. So, Sanchi, do you have any comments, please?
Yes, so very interesting, Sarthak. Yeah, it seems that there are like 2 approaches. Well, obviously there are multiple approaches, but there are 2 different paths. One is gradual adaptation of all what you said. For instance, a regular IVF lab could now, for instance, integrate SAMA, right, very easily. Or we could add some pieces of equipment that, let's say, augment the embryologies such as, I don't know, VIII or Ixia. So some machines that eliminate repetitive work and allows the embryologist to do more things. Or you can go the other approach and just start from scratch in the middle of the desert and just build this humongous factory, everything automated, right? I think probably both things will happen in parallel, but maybe some will have a use. Let's say if you have already an IVF center and you want to set up satellites, probably you don't need all that, or you could rethink the whole thing and you just go to let's say a boutique office, but you say your clinics that you are thinking about. You never see a doctor, and the embryos just go to this factory in the middle of the desert, right? And so interesting. I don't think they are at all contraposed. I think that both will have a play in the field.
No, I absolutely agree with you, right? I mean, we are working with one of the top 3 IVF networks in the country now in terms of volume. And what Santiago just said completely echoes with the way in reality as to how we are working with them. So this is a legacy clinic. You know, we are updating their infrastructure. We are also adding a services stack with offering them the at-home services, but also their growth. So the way that they were thinking about setting up their satellite clinics is also being changed by the way that this technology is now available to them. So back in the, just to give you a very real example around this, they already run 6 or 7 satellite clinics across the country. They are, they're managed as fully functional clinics, essentially, and they're very expensive to operate as they stand. Now, what we are doing is we are, they have our devices, the physical devices that we operate with, the small ones, as an alternative to the large ones that they have in the office. They don't anymore have any other, clinical staff there. And they essentially just have someone that is trained to vaguely operate it because the ultrasounds are being operated by us. So the total mathematics and the total operations of the clinic itself are changing. And by that, what has happened is that they're able to grow a lot faster. So they were aiming for starting around 7 new physical centers over the next year. They've changed that and they've updated it to about 20 new satellite centers. Satellite centers that are powered and managed by, the tech that you just saw. So I agree. Like, I think it's going to be a hybrid version of it. I think we should definitely consider how Overture gets set up in these centers, while there could be a more mature central laboratory and a space for something that is ground up in terms of conceivables.
Yeah, both things are obviously go to the same point, that is that we want to eliminate variability. The variability is huge in every aspect of what we do right now. And then when you want to do something new, and that's probably why IVF it's not going very fast, or it's not going as fast as other fields in technology, is because of all this variability. So once you have everything in the lab automated, then if you want to add something new, there is just one variability that you have to test. Now you have to fight all the variability, the background variability, in order to detect if this is working or not. And that's why you need thousands of patients sometimes to prove that there is a small change, an improvement. If you have just no variability, you're just testing one variable at a time because everything else is standard, then you can evolve much faster.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Sarthak, go ahead, Santiago.
No, go ahead, Daniela.
Yeah, I was just wondering about just changing the subject about the remote ultrasound
Yeah.
that you presented at the beginning, the SAMA. I was just wondering, so if the patient she's doing it by herself, she will obviously need some orientation, some help for a physician or maybe a nurse, embryologist or someone, right?
In person, no.
Not in person, but I mean by phone or by
Yeah. So that's the thing, right? Like they always have somebody on the phone, and the person
on
on
the
the
phone.
phone is, in fact, they're the ones operating the device. So it isn't the patient isn't responsible to just go and like take images and make sure the images look good.
Okay, so someone is operating it remotely.
Yeah, there's a person and our trained machine that is helping that person make sure, because sometimes,
So you
like
just
the sweep,
position.
yeah, the sweep could be too fast, for example, right? So what happens in that
Yeah.
case? So even the human isn't able to do anything, right? So then we have our own tools that then we are able to catch it in post processing. That's what I was trying to say earlier, which is it's a combination
Yeah.
of humans and machine
Yeah.
software essentially that is able to perform the scan in a remote setting, where the patient's hand is just like think about it like a robot, right? Like it's just like going up, down,
Okay.
right? Pretty much that's about it.
Perfect. And then I was wondering, Oscar, I don't know if you agree with me. For example, in third group or other big groups that have many clinics, you can have much more clinics, or not all clinics, or just like small centers, maybe, small centers that the patient will have just the ultrasound would be at home. Will have one consulting, one appointment, and then have the ultrasound, and then just go for the oven pickup. Do you think that it would work? Do you understand what I mean? I lost you.
No, not actually. I didn't understand. I didn't understand very well what you said. You are saying that we can have like small offices without doctors, just with
No, with
uh,
you can have doctors, but not like the big clinics or the big centers that you have now, just the smallers. And because you have to see the patients only once or twice, and then in the oven pickup, and then the oven pickup can be in the center where the lab is.
Yep.
I was just maybe traveling here, but just thinking.
That's I mean, just to supplement that, that's exactly how we're doing it with CNY fertility right now. So the clinic has it's not even a fully staffed technologist. They have someone who's available there. That person is administering the scan, but it is being performed remotely by our ultrasound specialist. The data goes into our central system. The machine reads that data, is able to predict what needs to happen for the patient for the following day. And the instructions then are sent out to the patient automatically. The whole thing takes about 5.5 minutes after the images are uploaded into the machine. If you are doing blood work, we are a low blood work monitoring protocol, so we only do 2 blood works, which get entered into the system the exact same way. The blood goes automatically in, the machine looks at it.
But also a nurse can go there and take the blood.
Yeah, I mean, if you're at the center,
Sure.
that's exactly what is happening. You're right. But then the
Yeah.
analysis of the blood will take a little longer. If you have a blood analyzer on site, then it will take about 25 minutes, and then you can have the instructions go out automatically to the patient. But if you aren't doing as many bloods, you don't need that. You have ultrasound images that are really high quality, and the protocol actually comes off really well at that point too. So you can use both. I'm trying to be more open-minded about, I don't know what your practice is, but if you have blood analyzers and an ultrasound technician, that's it. You don't need anybody else. Or it could be one person that runs the entire show there. Could be.
Yeah, I was thinking like, for example, Brazil is huge, and maybe we can have a patient in Nordeste, Northwest, or in the South,
Mhm.
and maybe have an appointment with the physician online, and then have the scan online or remotely,
Mhm.
and just go for the oven pickup. Like, it's huge.
So,
I don't know if it work with the Brazilian patients, but it's
that's a
something to
great
think
question.
about.
I don't know if it works for like Brazilian patients, any differently, but what I wanted to show you is maybe just take you back to the thing that was out of order, right? So,
Okay, yeah.
right? So just
Yeah.
think about it for a second. So this is exactly what you're saying right now. And we already do this. We've done this now for more than 500 patients, and our success outcome rates are comparable to any of the national averages. So this is what you're asking. So everything in green, I don't have a pointer here, but everything in green is done remotely, at home or in a satellite, whatever you
Mhm.
think about it. You come only for egg pickup and embryo transfer. That's it. The bottom two things, those are the only two things that you come in for SAMA. This is how SAMA operates today. Literally, like we don't have monitoring clinics or anything like that. We literally operate like this, and we've done it
Yeah,
now.
this is what you're presenting in ASRM,
Exactly.
right?
So we have 42. Um, our fetal heartbeat rate is at about 64%. We have about 42 babies that have been born in the last 2 years. I know
Wow.
maybe you are very large as a practice, but we
Yeah.
will get there very quickly.
Very nice.
So
Very nice.
that's exactly what I'm suggesting. I think we should think about the evolution of the clinic from that perspective. And it's not, sorry, it's not out of the norm, right? I don't know if you've looked at evolution around medicine. Forget about anything else. Pulmonology, for example, right? Back 10 years ago, if you wanted to get a sleep study done, you went to a sleep lab in the middle of the night. You slept, you got hooked with all electrodes and everything. And then they wake you up at 4 a.m. saying, your sleep study's done. And they kick you out, right? Like I did mine in Brooklyn. Brooklyn in New York at 4 a.m. in the morning is just scary. So now you don't have to do that, right? They send you it's a, it's a, it's one electrode. It goes around your wrist. You sleep, go to bed in your own bed at night, and it takes all of the data that whole experience did, and it sends it over to the pulmonologist. Orthodontics has seen a similar move, if you think about it, right? So you still have the 10% people, 15% people who need that care of in clinic, right? They need the braces, they need the electrodes because for whatever reason, they're not the right candidate for the at-home services. But orthodontics, pulmonology shows that at home works, and it works really well. And it increases the size of the pie. It increases the number of people you're serving. More new people end up coming into the clinic to use these services, your services, because it's more convenient, it's accessible, it's cheaper, and it works just fine. So that's exactly what it would look like. So the evolution isn't like totally, crazy to imagine because it's literally happened in medicine in other verticals. So
Can I ask what about the prices? How much it would cost for the summer?
yeah, so absolutely, and our pricing is like right on the website for
I
everybody.
think you already told me that
No,
once,
I'm more
but
than happy to. My point is, I'm more than happy
I
to tell
don't.
you this isn't the same price point that we would look at, across geographies. I work in the US. There's a certain expectation of services. So we charge about $450 a scan. That's what our price point is. It's more convenient. We do have partnerships where we charge lesser, around $250. But in that case, those partners have strategically invested with us, and we've looked at a much more deeper partnership with them. So CNY, for example, is just one of our partners, which is we are essentially revamping their entire architecture, geared more towards doing things in this way than not. So we're looking at their entire architecture, right from their record systems and all of that, right from the ground up.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Any questions?
I know there's so many
Santi,
people.
any other
Come on, who's
comments?
the most courageous person?
Nice
Podem mandar a
presentation.
pergunta em português aí, a Dani traduz aqui, né? Quem quiser.
Oh, there is
There
a
you go.
question from Edu. Edu is asking something here.
Oh, we're not far at
far?
all. In fact, these companies are commercially available in the US. I think the only barrier right now is the expense of these tests. And I hope that the companies that are working on there, we are in fact thinking about it. Me and Santiago are thinking about doing this in a much more affordable way. We have the chemistry figured out behind it. But right now, the biggest part of this is not bioinformatics. It's just expensive. So there's one company that does it by embryo. It's about $6,000 per embryo to select for or to perform whole genome sequencing. Then the other company, the company that we partner with, Heresight, they have a slightly different approach, but they are just as expensive. They charge you a fee of somewhere between $30,000 and $50,000. And then with that, what you're able to do is you're able to go through IVF in 1 year, and you can do whole genome sequencing on as many embryos as you want. So I guess the per embryo cost for that would then be somewhere close to $1,000. Which is more affordable, but still the upfront expenses. We've been joisting with them and telling them that they need to change that. Maybe have an upfront lower per embryo cost or something which makes it more accessible. Because our mission at Sama is to make IVF and treatments more accessible. But it's available. To answer your question again very clearly, this is available right now. And we have patients that have now gone through it. They select eye color, they select height. Eye color is the easiest one to verify, because the baby is born, and if it's not the right eye color, if it works or not. Everything else takes a little bit of time, and also is probably what is intelligence, right? What is IQ? Santi has opinions, so please, Santi.
No, I would say that first you select for all possible diseases because you're doing whole genome sequencing. Not only the ones that are inherited, but also the novel mutations that accumulate with age, especially in the sperm. So once you have eliminated any possible mutations and still have a few euploid embryos, then you can select for other things, right? Because, hey, if you have this information, why leave it to which one it's an AAB or whatever selection based on morphology? You can choose it based on other things. Also, let's say actually Heresight only selects one trait, which is for IQ, but people pay quite a bit of money for private education, right? And I mean, I'm paying $60,000 for every one of my kids to take them to the university. So if they could have a grant because they are like 10 points more intelligent than another one, probably it's a good investment.
Facing education, this is something.
I think it is a certain tightrope, right? I'm not debating that. One of the things that I always say is that don't you select for better nutrition? You always are somebody who is looking at selecting for positive things. When you're selecting your mate, for example, you're looking for the tall, the whatever traits you're looking for there. So I I think that the focus of a lot of these companies has been other serious polygenic diseases. I think I'm very much in support of that, right? Getting rid of disease in general. I think I don't believe there's any ethical qualms there. The other things around like selecting for the traits that you know I mentioned, the other traits like intelligence or color. I think that they aren't as different than selecting for a higher grade of nutrition for yourself or your child. So again, I think we will come to pass. You're having one kid now, instead of the five. You want to make sure that you're selecting for the best one.
Even if we had 5 kids or 10 kids, you would want the best ones, obviously.
Right, but I think the stakes are even higher is the point I was going to make. You
Sure.
always want the best for your kids. I did polygenic risk scoring on my kids, by the way, not with either of these companies.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. But so I have a very strong history of heart disease in my family, right? And I mean, they've told me that I could select for one that was lower on a standard deviation for incidence of heart disease. I took it.
Sure.
No
Sure.
questions. No questions.
Yeah.
I didn't have any ethical qualms at that point in time.
Sure.
And again, you're not engineering, right? Like if you don't have blue eyes in your history, you're not going to be able to create blue eyes there. You just have
Yeah.
the best version of yourself. That's why I said that. I do agree. Yeah, I do think so, Eduardo. To follow up on that.
O Edu tá profundo.
So Eduardo asks a question. He says, "Do you think
Sure.
IVF will substitute natural conception?" That was, in fact, the point I was making at the movement from just IVF treating infertile patients to IVF treating a different category of people, which is fertile people that just want a better version of themselves, which, I think there definitely will be a possibility where you would have a lot more people choosing IVF over not. I fully expect that to happen.
Yeah, that's 80% of the market.
It is.
Oi, boa
Ei.
noite. Eu vou precisar de
Yeah.
tradução para inglês, por favor. Meu nome é Ângela, eu ainda sou estudante, mas eu devo admitir que não falo o inglês perfeitamente, mas estou acompanhando a apresentação. E minha pergunta é sobre a qualidade da imagem, né, do que foi apresentado, considerando que a precisão do ultrassom é crucial, né, no monitoramento da FIV. Quais são as estratégias de validação que estão em vigor para garantir que as imagens, né, que vão ser capturadas pelo paciente, mesmo com orientação remota, elas mantenham a mesma qualidade diagnóstica e a confiabilidade dos exames feitos numa clínica?
Yes, Sarthak, I think she's saying that have you validated the quality of the images of the ultrasound, which is, since it's portable, right? Maybe the quality is different.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that question. I kind of guessed it as you were saying that, Angela. Yeah, with this quality of the imaging is extraordinarily good. The crystals that they have used are very high quality. And that's been the basis of our presentation at ASRM this year, which is we compared it to the in-clinic approach in terms of not just outcomes, but also in terms of image quality. And it's very comparable. I'm not a physician, so I'm taking my cue from our physicians that are very, very happy with the image quality.
Sarthak, but did you compare the images from the same patient
No,
The self-scan with the ultrasound in the clinic? No, not the same
no,
patient.
we age normalized our patient population,
Okay.
and we weren't able to do it. That I pointed that out as a limitation of our study up to now. Please realize this, that we started off as a for-profit organization, so research isn't like our core activity. Um, we definitely want to do it, and that's kind of one of the things we will do at with CNY. CNY does 20 or 1,000 cycles a year. We'd be,
Okay.
we'd have a lot more ability to do that there.
Because I think it would be very interesting if you have the device inside the clinic and then the patient use first the device and then we check the results doing the traditional method
Agree.
with the doctor checking the measures and then comparing and seeing the correlation between the results and how how precise is the method.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree.
Yeah, this is what was trying to do some collaboration, was trying to do that, Oscar. We're thinking about doing that, something like that.
Okay, good. I didn't
No,
know.
but
Good
yeah,
idea
we're
then.
trying to. Angela, did you understand your...
Yeah,
Angela, você
that's a
entendeu
great,
sua
great
resposta?
point.
A Angela pediu para eu explicar a última parte que ele falou da... She's asking me to explain her what was the last part of the answer that you gave her. Angela, ele falou que a qualidade do ultrassom dele remoto é absolutamente boa, que é muito boa mesmo e que é absolutamente comparável ao ultrassom que é feito na clínica. Então, em termos de imagem,
Que nesses dias eu estava acompanhando uma engenheira biomédica que foi lá na China, e eu estava vendo ultrassom portátil, então achei bem interessante. Então, quando eu vi também o jornal que ia ter hoje, né? Achei muito interessante e eu acho que aprendi também hoje. Obrigada.
If not, I mean, you have my email. I actually put my cell phone on it. The area code was +1. I'll send over the slide deck also to Daniela and
perfect.
Oscar, so you folks can have it. And yeah, just feel free to reach out. We definitely need to figure out how to do that particular study as you were suggesting. I would be more than happy and excited to do it. It's just the devices are a limiting factor for us. They're expensive, so we have to make sure that they're working towards creating revenue for us. But I think
Okay.
with the right allocation of resources from everyone, we should be able to figure something out. But
Perfect. I appreciate.
more than happy to share a lot of other things around the validity. Like we have an entire presentation of how well the at-home works. I think Daniela, you've seen that, right? With Jessica.
Yeah, we had 2 meetings
Yeah.
before, and yeah, she presented
Right.
she presented
So
me.
exactly.
for
So
me.
we have a lot of data in terms of and a global scale. Oscar, just to rehash on the infrastructure that is constantly keeping an eye out on whether outcomes fall, right? So we have an expected outcome. The system will tell me the moment something is off in terms of global outcomes. So we are comparing against other clinics, SART, and our internal success metrics nonstop. Like everything is being measured. So even though I don't have the inter-patient with intra-patient comparison on a global scale, it works really well. So, well, thank you. Thank you so much for your
Thank you.
time, folks, and really appreciate all of the amazing questions. And Daniela, I really appreciate you having me over.
Sarthak, I really appreciate your time and your presentation. Sanchi, the same for you. Thank you very much. I know how busy you guys are, and I really, on behalf of FET Group and the Instituto Sapiense, I really appreciate your time and your presentation. Thank you very
Thank you
much,
very
guys.
much. Bye.
Pessoal, obrigada pela presença de todo mundo. E o nosso próximo Júnior é dia 2 de outubro, 2 de dezembro, pessoal. Beijo para todo mundo, boa noite. Thank you very much, guys. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good night.